All right, it is 8:02, and I trust that everybody can hear me okay. And I'd like to welcome all of you to this SynkedUp webinar. My name is Ray Rodenberg. I'm from Unilock, and I'll be the host here for Weston. Weston is going to bring us an interesting topic. It's one that he is very passionate about, and I think it's very, very timely in terms of the going into 2024. And you know, we have to be at the top of our game to close jobs. And Weston has some proven tactics that he's learned over the years that he's going to share with you tonight, and also show you ways of automating that to some extent. And so I'm not going to take any more things out of his speech. I'll let him take it from here. Weston, welcome. And oh, I should just mention the chat is open. You're welcome to leave messages. And what we'll do after about 30 to 40 minutes in, when Weston wraps, we'll go down the list. We'll answer some questions. That should be also an interesting part of the webinar. So take her away, Weston.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Ray. Appreciate you being a gracious host on a cold winter night. And my goal is to share some principles that, you know, we learned together as a team at Tusky Landscaping in Pennsylvania. Basically, over 15 years of growing a business from like a $700,000 business to what is today a $6 million business of high-end outdoor living design build, spaces. And what I want to share is definitely not all, like I mentioned, it was a team effort from the whole team at Tussie. And what I'm going to try to share is like just synthesize it down into key principles. And I'll try to present it in a way that you see the principle, but then you also see the way we applied the principle. And what I don't want you to get confused is you can take the principle and apply it to what feels right for you. I'll share some ideas of how we did it, but it's not to say that there's not other ways to share to put the same principles into place. My goal is to wrap my slides up at 30 minutes, at the 30-minute mark, to leave some time for Q&A and not drag it out too long. So I'll try to be brisk right on through the content. But as we're going, drop your comments into the chat, and I want to hear what thoughts or ideas strike you, or what you want to dig into. And to kick things off, why don't you all drop in your company name and the city and state that you're from into the chat. I'd love to see where all we have some participants from. And while you're doing that, I'm going to share my screen. Ray, if you give me a thumbs up when you see it come through. It's already there. Nice. Okay, I'm going to put the chat down here in my lower right corner. Does that cover up? Do you see any kind of black square on my screen when I'm sharing screen, Ray? Oh, you're on mute.
No, all clean on you. Everything is good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we got Alex from Derby City, Louisville, Kentucky. It is a cold night in Louisville tonight. We got Daniel from Landscape Maintenance Company from Grays Lake, Illinois. Nice. Awesome. Be interesting to see if I meet any of these folks at Cruise Lawn. I'll be out at Cruise Lawn's event on Thursday in Chicago. But I'm going to jump right in for the sake of time. So basically, the topic here is 4 ways to close more jobs. And, introducing myself a little bit, I've been a contractor my whole life. I worked at Tusky Landscaping for 15 years. I started working there when I was 16 years old, before I even had a driver's license. I loved systems and processes. And a really long story short, we had a need, ultimately built a software product that turned into SynkedUp. And today I'm the CEO and co-founder of SynkedUp with the 2 owners of Tusky Landscaping. And so, yeah, I built a software with a team and run a software company today. But what I want to share today is kind of when I look back at what it took for us to close up to, 7-figure projects, what it was that ultimately did that. What were the principles that kept us from wasting time on leads that weren't going to buy from us, and enabled us to deliver a really high quality client experience that built that trust and credibility and ultimately won you more work. Just to kind of set the stage, the lead sales and designer at Testing Landscaping, using these principles, had over a 90% close rate and sold a $5.5 million worth of work by himself in 2023. So these principles definitely work. And there are, like I said before, there are various ways to implement them. So I'm going to dive right into the meat of it. So top reasons for not winning a job are often attributed to price, not getting the quote back in time, or trying to sell something to a not a good fit client, meaning like you sell $100,000 backyards and the client has a $10,000 budget. It's not a good fit. It's like the gap is too wide to be able to meet it. So these most of the most common reasons that a job doesn't get signed somehow stems back to these three. And we may all have our own opinion as to which ones are more common or more prevalent or more detrimental to us, our ability to close jobs. I'm going to dig into it a little bit. So to close more jobs, the key elements that we need to nail down is our pricing, our ability to filter leads. That's connected straight back to our ability to find good fit clients. Speeding up quote turnaround time, I would wager that is one of the most critical ones. Contractors kind of get a bad rap for not returning phone calls or taking forever to get a quote back. And study after study, statistic after statistic proves that it's not price that kills the deals. It is the client experience or the quote turnaround time that kills the deal. If you have a contractor that returns a quote, let's just say I know there's multi six-figure projects that have a multi-design phase. I'm not really talking about that, but let's say just the standard run-of-the-mill 30 by 40, 1,000 square foot patio or whatever. If you can get that quote back within 24 hours, your chance of winning that quote is much higher than the contractor that has the cheapest price for the exact same project. And there's so many different studies that back up the importance of speed in quote turnaround time. We are human beings. We make decisions from the emotional part of our brain, whether we admit it to ourselves or not. And this is a huge part of not upsetting that process. So in the point number one on nailing down your pricing, it equals confidence. When you nail down your pricing, it equals confidence. Clients can smell lack of confidence on you like sharks can smell blood in water. Like if you give a quote for 50 grand and they'll be like, well, yeah, I got 45. Can you do 45? They see you falter. If you don't have clarity and confidence about where your numbers are and what your price is, they'll see that. They'll smell that. They'll pick that up. But if you do have clarity and confidence about what your pricing is, and you're like, sure, I can meet you at 45. What would you like to change? Would you like to take the lighting out? Would you like to simplify the design? Bingo. Negotiating on scope, not on price, is the key to attributing that. And I will tell you, just from my real world experience in working with a bunch of contractors, the best antidote drug that you can have to build up this confidence is to know exactly what your break even is on every job, right down to the penny. Because when you know what your break even is, and you see that, well, if I sell this $50,000 job for 45, I'm barely going to make $500 in profit. It's the best thing you can do for your own persona, your own being, your own presence in that sales conversation with a client. So the common situation is you get a lead for your biggest job yet. This is the contractor life that we've all transitioned through at some form or fashion. You sweat for hours crunching all the numbers, and this is where the self-doubt starts creeping in, right? When we're either hitting send on that proposal or presenting the proposal to the client in person. And that whole negotiating on price instead of scope, this is where it really becomes a temptation. Like, do I have too many hours in this bid, or is it really going to take me that much backfill? All these questions we start second guessing ourselves, and the next thing you know is we negotiate our profit away. And what we try, I'm just kind of describing the common story. This is the story we ran through for sure. Is you build complex spreadsheets, you educate yourself hours and hours on how the math works. There's probably a little bit of guessing involved, especially as you're bidding jobs you haven't bid before. And today, tons of Facebook group questions, the all infamous "what would you charge" question, which sometimes gets a pretty intelligent, nice, long, detailed answer, but it is really difficult to accomplish in a Facebook thread. Or you get a whole lot of arrogant, like go figure it out type responses. And that's kind of how we end up in this result of feeling like we're reinventing the wheel for every quote, or we find ourselves caving and allowing the client to negotiate on price instead of scope with us. And ultimately, all of these symptoms kind of culminate up in us working our tails off. We crushed it all year long. We did $1 million worth of revenue, but open up your bank account balance and it's like 10 grand in there. Like, how am I going to make it through the winter? Like, where did all that money go? How can I handle that much money? And there's nothing left. And so this is the pain that we all live in. But I want to skip to the solution. The solution really is pretty simple. And I say simple in practice. Yes, there's a lot of learning and a lot of numbers and there's a lot of learning that needs to happen. So I don't mean to oversimplify it, but in theory, rhetorically speaking, the solution is building a budget, which means plugging all of your costs in to get your pricing back out. And when I say plug costs in, I mean plug in what equipment you have, plug in all your overhead expenses, your insurance, your office admin, your payroll, your fuel, all of that gets plugged in, your retirement, what you pay yourself as the owner, all of that stuff has to get plugged in. And then you get your man-hour rate, your overhead recovery markup back out. And that is what empowers you or gives you the tool set to know your break even on every single job. And when you have that, that's what gives you that we're paving to not allow ourselves to crush and cave on negotiation of price instead of scope. So this whole thing of knowing your numbers is key so that you don't start getting the death wobble in your conversation with your customer, so that we can get down to business and allow you to sell a job at a profitable price that will allow you to make money, as well as give you the margin to deliver a 10 out of 10 client experience in the production of the project and the completion of the project. What a lot of people do is do this cost plus profit thing, which gives the customer's price. So like double the costs or triple the costs is a common kind of napkin math method you hear thrown out there sometimes. But the missing link there is that overhead, which I mentioned in the budget. So there's three main components to coming up with your pricing. It's the cost, meaning like what you pay for materials and labor, plus the overhead, like all of the marketing expenses, the insurance, the overhead, the utilities, the trucks and the vehicles on the road, the maintenance bills, plus your profit. Those three components together is what needs to compile up a customer's price. And we don't want to do this square foot pricing. I'll just say most times when we do this square foot pricing, it's because it's fast and easy. The challenge is you can't alter your square foot pricing fast enough to keep up with the moving and changing conditions and variables, whether it's site access or prices changing on product or labor. You give some of your employees a raise, bam, instantly it has a direct impact on your insurance bill goes up, has a direct impact on what you ultimately need to charge per square foot. So I would prefer to come up with cost plus overhead recovery plus profit, which comes out with my price, and then I can divide it by square footage to find out what my square foot rate is for that job, not square foot rate times square foot measurement and then getting my price, because it just does not allow for variables. I'm just quickly going to define the cost. So these are the costs that you have when you sell the job. You don't have these costs when you don't sell the job. The overhead are the costs that you have regardless whether you sell the job or not. Your owner's salary, your fuel, your insurance, your advertising, taxes, tools, all of that is in your overhead. The net profit is what's left after there literally is not another bill left to pay. The owner's been paid, all the overhead's covered, and the business makes a profit even after the owner's been paid. And then this is what pricing a job should look like. You take your costs plus your overhead recovery markup rate, which gives you the funds that you need to cover your overhead expenses for the time duration that you're going to be on that job, which gives you your break even, plus your net profit equals your customer's price. And here's what I'm talking about. When you know what your break even is on a job and you give this client a price of $17,460 and they say, well, I got 15. I'm not going to move above 15. Can you do 15? And you know that your break even's 14,550. You're like, it's not worth it. You know, I'll help you simplify the design to meet your budget, but I can't just knock it off the top of the price. So every company's costs are different, which means that you need to compensate for things like variable costs, or even if you're buying materials from a different vendor across town because it's closer to the job site, that, you know, that can have an impact on things. And the reason that you can't go to a Facebook group and say, well, what would you charge? Okay, great. I'm going to take what you charge and I'm going to charge it myself. Doesn't work because of all of the variable. You may have different equipment. You may have different labor and team costs, like labor costs. All those things compile up to, we got to do the hard work of figuring it out ourselves. The good news is it's not that hard. And at the end of the presentation, I'm going to drop my email address on the slide here so you can send me an email and I will respond to you with a free budgeting tool, which will help just clear the air on all this number stuff that I'm opening up with here, which I have right here in this slide. Got ahead of myself. So the negotiate on scope on and not on price thing is one that I've already hammered home pretty good, but it is to not associate your value of a dollar to theirs. I know I have a good friend in our local market here, nicest guy you could ever, you know, do business with, but he has a hard time selling a job to a customer that when he looks at it, it's like, man, I would never spend 60 grand on this backyard project at my house. And he really lets it get in the way of selling the job to the client. And what ends up happening is whether you think you can or can't sell at the price that you have on your proposal, you are right, which is why it's so key to have this confidence in your own numbers. And the truth is, you know, most customers do have a budget that they need to stick to. It's not like we're all just have limitless funds, but that's okay. You know, it's not a problem. You just can't sacrifice your profit to meet their budget. And, you know, we live in a consumer society. And so, you know, we walk around and see 20% off, 50% off, and customers don't know any different when they come to you to do a construction project to be like, well, can I get a, you know, a discount? And it's like, well, no, it's not the way construction works, but I can help you design and scope the job to meet your budget while still maintaining the profit margin I need to be profitable in my business. So did what they asked for at your normal profit margin. When you negotiate on price, you're only negotiating with your profit, and don't let our own, our own lack of self-confidence get in the way of just hitting send on that number. And the biggest thing is if you don't know your true break even on that job, it's where we fight the battle then to stand our ground and to ultimately sell the job for the for. So that is
Weston, you seem
that
to
out so that when you get
on my end, Weston. I hope
what's that?
if anybody else is having difficulty, please put it in the chat. I've noticed a little bit of freezing on this Zoom platform. So if you're having trouble, please let me know in the chat. We may have to go video off screen here just to reduce bandwidth, but we'll keep plodding forward.
Okay. Let me know if it clears up for you, Ray. Are you able to hear me still?
Yep. Proceed.
Okay. Thank you. Apologies for that. So basically, the point I was making on the whole know your number stuff, it was a bit difficult to go into the know your number stuff and go deep enough to make the point, but not too deep to kind of go too fast. And but what I want you, if you remember any one thing, what I want you to remember is now's the time in the winter to sit down for a morning, get yourself a cup of coffee, figure it out, and so that when you come to sending quotes out in April, May, and June, you've already put that issue to bed, and that's not the issue that's killing your ability to make deals. So once you've built a budget, and once you've established your hourly rate, and once you've established what you need to charge to be profitable on the kind of work that you're good at, then it just becomes a game of filtering your one of my favorite topics on this whole thing about closing proposals. And it becomes a game of filtering leads so that you can sell work to customers that can pay for the services that you do at prices that you need to charge to be profitable. And it all comes down to, not selling to someone that really doesn't have the budget for what you do. And I often like to ask, what's the first thing you think of when you hear filtering leads, and why is filtering needed? Well, this picture should explain why. If a Mrs. Jones come to you and is like, hey, here's the picture that I have in mind, and I have a $15,000 budget, you end up missing dinner to go bid that, but you never ask what the budget is. You end up missing dinner to go bid that job, and realizing that, oh my, we are just miles apart here. This is just never going to work. And it took 2 or 3 hours of our time to figure that out. So that's why filtering is so critical. And the common filtering methods are, consultation fees, or having a defined availability, like, hey, I only meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, like, what budget did you have in mind to spend on your project? And not getting a budget from a customer is always it's a bit of an art. But Tossie Landscaping did something that I really, really enjoyed, and the clients that we worked with really enjoyed it as well, and it was extremely effective. And all of these methods, I'm going to get into that in a future slide here. All of these methods are not about like, oh, hang my hat on consultation fees, got to do consultation fees. I don't really care if it's a $5 consultation fee or a $500 consultation fee, or whether you don't do a consultation fee at all. At the end of the day, what we're optimizing for is to not waste our precious time on a lead that was never going to buy from you anyway. And whether the customer knew it or not, they may not have known, right? But my favorite way of filtering leads ever was this project that we honed over Tossie Landscaping over a number of years, which was this project planner, which allowed a customer to call in to Tossie Landscaping, say, I want to do a patio. Let's say, okay, great. Here, let's schedule a consultation. We have a consultation fee. The client would schedule the consultation, pay the consultation fee, and then the secretary would say, oh, and I'm going to send you an email with a link to our project planner where you can fill out and tell your designer what it is that you're interested in. And I'm going to play this video here real quickly. This is the Tossie Landscaping homepage. And when you go down, there is this step 1 of 3 of start building. And when you click on start building, you can see images of all the different things that Tossie Landscaping did with a small, medium, and large option, and budget ranges and pictures and descriptions. And the client could browse this interactive visual project planner that allowed them to ultimately see whether they could afford what they wanted. And sometimes what would happen is a customer would call, or a consultation lead would call back in after they had booked for the consultation and paid for the consultation and canceled their consultation because they had no idea that what they had in mind was a $150,000 project and they were wanting to spend 20. Other times, somebody would fill this thing out for 150,000 and end up spending 300 when they got excited about the project. So it's less about getting a budget. It's more about educating the client as to what things cost. And when you can educate the client as to what things cost, you can get down to business a whole lot quicker and save. Clients don't want to be embarrassed, and they also don't want to feel like they're showing you their cards of like, well, I have 50, but if I really had to, I'd go to 70. This is a very comfortable, interactive way that allows you to understand what you need to know to understand that you have a solid lead here that you can do a good job for, and it gives the client the ability to educate themselves as to what things cost without making themselves feel like a heel, which is very, very important. And it's an incredible client experience at the end of the day. And, I can get you guys in touch with that web developer that built that project planner. If any of you guys want to check it out for yourselves in your own websites, it's something you can install on pretty much any website. And number 3, this one's incredibly important. This is it's the dead horse I beat on this topic of closing more proposals, and that is speeding up quote turnaround time. So speeding up that estimating process and getting quotes back to customers quicker is the ultimate goal. Like if you're not able to if it's taking you 2 to 3 weeks to get a quote back on a standard run-of-the-mill job, that's a challenge. Yeah, you're gonna struggle to close jobs. And so I have come to believe this quote here, that you will win more jobs by providing a quote quickly before leaving the driveway, even if it's the type of, if you're doing, depending what type of work you're doing, obviously, than you ever will by being the cheapest contractor. And I just have not seen really any data to go against this. And so speeding up quote turnaround time is definitely going to help you more than being 2%, 5% less than the next guy. And so I'm going to talk about different things that we did at Tyson Landscaping over the years to just speed up our quote turnaround time. And honestly, that's what SynkedUp's in the business of doing too, but just some practical tips. Like if you're calling your vendors for pricing on every quote, at minimum, figure out a way to get your vendors' pricing sheets with you, whether it's in paper printed out or whether you have a spreadsheet where you can just search for it, or even better, load it all into an estimating software like SynkedUp, where you could just have templates and your product catalogs all preloaded with all your pricing in it, and you're good to go. This is what it looks like in a spreadsheet. And production rates is another incredible way that you can build a formula that helps you basically quickly calculate how much you need of something to do a job. And when you can do this incredibly speeds up your quote turnaround time, because instead of crunching the numbers every single time on paper or in a calculator, you're able to just plug in like, hey, it's 500 square feet, and bam, it calculates how much base rock you need, or how much setting bed stone you need, or how much lineal edging you need on your pavers, or whatever. Like a production rate is very, very flexible. You can also build production rates to help you understand how much labor you need. In fact, this is a quick little video that shows what I mean by building a production rate.
Are we supposed to be hearing audio, Weston?
I'm not hearing audio. Yeah, let me see. Thanks for bringing that up, Ray. I'm trying to fast forward to the part where I start moving on the
what you're
spreadsheet.
saying, you can also narrate what we're seeing too.
Yeah. So here I built a mock spreadsheet. This is kind of what SynkedUp does, but I wanted to show it in a spreadsheet form so that anybody can do it for free. And basically the principle of a production rate is like, let's say I need to find what my production rate is. Well, if I need to find it, so I can say, well, on my last job, it took me 27.5 tons of number 57s for a 650 square foot patio, which means my production rate was 0.0423 tons of stone per square foot of installed product at my typical 6-inch depth. So that means now I can use that to build a production rate, and in a spreadsheet I can plug in how many square feet my next patio is, and bingo, it immediately calculates how many tons of stone I need. And I can do the same thing, not only for stone, but for labor, edge restraint, joint sand, pavers, you fill in the blank. Like production rates are, they're like a superpower once you get them built into your whole estimating process for the work that you do on a regular basis. Templates is kind of like another component of this idea of speeding up estimating time, which basically what it looks like is you can build templates in spreadsheets or in an estimating software like SynkedUp. But this is the template that I mocked up, where I could literally just go through and type in my square footages and my lineal footages, and it's taking my production rates here where my mouse is that I calculated from doing my math manually and build it into the spreadsheet. And then it's taking my cost and my overhead recovery, my profit, automatically applying it to the total quantity to come up with my total price to the customer just by me plugging in my measurements. And that is how you can go from spending hours and hours on a quote to literally minutes. Like probably one of my favorite stories is a customer, SynkedUp user in California. He went from spending 2 to 3 days on big multi-6-figure projects to literally 10 to 15 minutes after he built all his templates and production rates out, and just sped up his whole entire estimating process. So it's really, really, it's my favorite part. It's the favorite transformation that, after you get a budget built for a business, this is like the templates and production rates is genuinely fun for me, because you can take something that took manual math, took a lot of time. You felt you were reinventing the wheel every time. It was the thing that only you as the owner or operator could do in the business. Nobody else could build a quote because all this magic was caught in your head. Building templates and production rates turns it into a system and process that literally an office admin can do. Jeremy Morales, Unilock authorized contractor in New York, literally has his 13-year-old son building estimates for himself and closing jobs through the power of templates and production rates that Jeremy had spent time investing into building out. So it really truly is. It's almost like the keys out of the owner operator prison, because you're kind of like doing brain surgery, getting the information that's in you, stuck in your head from 20 years of experience, putting into a system and process that literally anybody that can plug in measurements can use. So why I would spend the time setting this up, it's pretty self-explanatory, but again, hammering home on this point that businesses who respond to leads, this is in the context, this is a screenshot in the context of web leads from a website. Businesses who respond to leads in 5 minutes or less are 100 times more likely to convert opportunities. And you can find different versions of studies like this where it studies speed to lead or lead response time. And suffice to say, yes, when you're giving a quote for a $100,000 patio, it's a little different, but it still matters. It might not be 5 minutes, but can we get started with 5 days and then work our way to 3 days? Anything is better than taking weeks to get back to a customer. And, you're not really competing with another contractor so much sometimes as you are maybe competing with upgrading the family vehicle or buying a boat or buying a second vacation home. We do make humans make emotional decisions. And so got to strike while the iron's hot. And number 4, my last point, is professional proposals. So this one's kind of maybe a little obvious. You may be like, well, yeah, duh, of course. But so many times it's easy to, just slap it together, throw a Word doc together, shoot it off, or scratch it out on a yellow carbon copy pad and hand it over. And it works. At the end of the day, I believe in doing what works, right? But this is another area where you can set your company apart in professionalism. And if you are the easiest person to do business with, you'll win more often. If you look like you're more professional than the others, you'll garner a second look. And this is this is a shot of me scratching out some notepad paper a while back. And this is just kind of what happens in the beginning. This is normal. But this is also what's so easy to set yourself apart on to something like this with well spelled out contracts, optional line items where a customer can check them on or off right from the software. They can e-sign it right there without printing and scanning or taking pictures of anything. They can confirm and pay the down payment automatically, electronically, right there, really quickly and easily. And when you're the easiest person to do business with, you tend to get more business, is the ultimate kind of rule of thumb. I see Alex commenting, yeah, this is upsold so much for them. Yeah, it's fantastic. Like, it's amazing when you can give a client good, better, best. Suddenly a client feels like I'm not being sold to, but I get to choose what I want. I am now buying. I'm not resisting sales pressure. And it just flips what's happening in the emotional reaction in the buying process. And it's those subtle little things that make such a big difference. Not to mention throwing optional upsell items on there, like, hey, I know you asked me for a patio and landscaping, but I threw an $8,000 lighting thing on there that no pressure, take it if you want. And, a certain percentage of the time you'll actually get it. So anyway, this is a quick video of what it looks like inside of the SynkedUp software, sending out a proposal. After you've got a bid pulled together, you can just select off what work areas you want to shoot off. And you can set out your terms and conditions. You can check the box to automatically submit a down payment invoice to the customer the moment they approve it. So it's literally sign and pay. You can spell out your payment terms, like what draw schedule you have. You can text them or email them this link. And this is what the customer sees. They can then choose to toggle on and off whatever they want or don't want. And the total at the bottom will automatically update in real time as they toggle things on and off, which allows you to start from zero and work your way up instead of start from the total of all your options you have thrown there and have to, work your way down. And when they confirm it, bingo, you get a notification. They now get an invoice to pay, and in the back end, it's all approved, ready to schedule, which will alert your team, your foreman via the mobile app. And it's just, I'm a fan of looking looking for ways to streamline and avoid a ton of manual intervention or interaction, and also increase communication so everybody in the team knows what's up. You know, if you as the owner operator are the source of truth or the source of information, that's a bottleneck. If you can build a system and process that is the source of truth and source of information, that is the keys out of the entrepreneurial prison. So be confident, be professional, be prompt, do what you said you do, and you will close more proposals. If you can know your numbers, negotiate on scope, not on price. You can speed up your quote turnaround time. You can have professional proposals, give the client an excellent buying experience, allow them to educate themselves as to what things cost. You will win. You will increase your close rate. And I just look back to some of the stories of Tassie Landscaping days where we went from, you know, traveling all over the countryside, trying to bid jobs that we were never going to get, to what is now a 90% close rate on $5.5 million worth of work. And to me, that kind of speaks for itself. And if you have any questions on any of this, I want to open this up for Q&A, of course. But if you have any questions, or if you want any of those resources, like that free budgeting tool I mentioned, that kind of lock in the whole know your numbers side of things with a free budgeting tool, hit me up on an email or message me directly on Instagram, and I'll get those resources back to you. Or if you even want to book a demo and get in depth on the software itself, I'm happy to do that too. I want to share real world value that we got from Tassie Landscaping. This is not intended to be a sales pitch. I genuinely want to hope that my goal here tonight is to help each one of you walk away with one thing that helps you close jobs more effectively in 2024. And I hope that's the case. And I'd love to hear your chats, your message, your thoughts in the chat here as to what that may be. If there's anything you're walking away to here that was helpful, I'd love to hear your feedback on that. And I'm here for as long as you need for Q&A.
Weston, I just wanted to kind of underscore something that, you know, you had mentioned about, you know, scaling, not scaling, but building a process so that it's repeatable in a consistent way. And I think that's something that I see as a problem when I meet with contractors on a regular basis. And you can see that every quote is almost a scramble. And it's either a scramble to contact the grower for trees, or it's a scramble because suddenly now it's you know, an unusual project where you need, you know, 120 ton of ledgestone, you know, or river rock or something. And so but all these numbers should be in your cash ahead of time. You need to have that. You can work out the deals later, but you need to have your starting cash ready. And it makes it so much easier. And the guys that do have it set up in a process really win. I was at an interesting, I don't see any questions at the moment. But if there is, please alert. So I'll continue on for a second. 10 years ago, I attended a roundtable of 6 contractors from across the country. And we sat around a table and kind of brainstormed a number of things on pricing and also on this whole idea of closing jobs. And the person at the end, and I don't remember the contractor's name, unfortunately, it was 10 years ago, but he said an interesting thing to me. He says, you know, all things being equal, you know, sometimes you quote against your equal adversaries, you know, guys that were just as qualified as you, and they have their pricing is the same as yours, and you go in, and if everybody's in at 25 grand for the job, you know, he says, I know that one thing is going to be, it's going to rely on me. It's my personality. It's my ability to connect with that homeowner. Because if I can make that connection with the homeowner, whether it's on a sport or on a hobby or on a mutual interest. If I can connect somewhere with that customer, even before the quote is actually made, it gives me a tremendous leg up because I have now, there's a bit of trust that gets built up.
Yep.
Simply because you're interested in the same things. You or maybe have the same goals in life, or it's quite unique. And when he mentioned that, it's like a light bulb went on. I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. It's that connection because, over the years I've sat down with kitchen people and window people for my own home here, and it was the people I connected with. If they were 3 or 4 or 5 grand more, I still went with them because I connected with them. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of underscore that it's kind of the sort of the I won't say the elephant in the room, but it's kind of
Yeah.
it's it's the kind of thing we're all aware of that it's there, but sometimes you have to be a little bit deliberate and how you work that.
Yeah. And to your point, like it's like I know some of these things might seem or feel at first glance like they're so insignificant. Like who cares whether I get a quote back tomorrow or the same day or 5 days from now? And it's these little things that are almost intangible or almost like the client could almost not even articulate them back to you. But it's like it gives
Mhm.
them a glimpse into what it's going to be like to work with you when
Mhm.
weather delays come up, when material shortages come up, when problems inevitably come up. Like, what is it like
Mhm.
to work with you? And when you can prove and start off on the right foot with a professional experience, communicate well, set expectations well, help them problem solve. Problem solving could be, hey, I only have 85 grand. I don't have 100. Help me build a beautiful project for 85. Like, how you're the expert. How can I do that? Because I'm the client. I don't know. You know. And when you can be their resource of knowledge and come up with creative solutions, like, yeah, that 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 speaks volumes to your potential customer.
I see there, Daniel's giving us a double thumbs up
Yeah,
on that knowledge confidence piece of the whole puzzle. So thanks for that, Daniel.
that's
Good.
awesome, Daniel. I see Alex, I think it was Alex, yeah, asked what marketing avenues does Tussie use to feed their sales? So it it definitely for Tussie, it definitely was not like a light bulb moment where things just flipped. It would literally like it's a 30-year-old business and it's just slow incremental growth year over year. But the three things that I can point to, where there are only two. Two things I can point to that for sure contributed heavily to their growth was physical in-person like displays at public places. And so they would go to every landscape center across the countryside. There for a while, it was like every year Tussie would invest into a significant in-person physical display with hardscape, landscape, water features, lighting, with a signage and brochures, call to action to book consultations or call people or call the office. So those physical in-person displays, there's probably 12 to 15 of them all across the countryside, scattered for an hour and a half in every direction. That has been huge. And then second was social media. So we started doing at Tusky Landscaping, we started doing social media probably back in 2015, where we started doing, regular YouTube videos, focus on Facebook and Instagram and publish showing our work, not just the beauty pictures, but also the in progress and the time lapse. And today, what is that? Almost 10 years later, that social media is actually a tangible, significant stream of highly qualified leads. Doesn't happen overnight. It's 8, 10 years later now, but it is significant. And it's like, when do you plant a tree? 5 years ago or today? Well, plant it today so that in 5 years we'll have some shade. And so, I think the power of displays is a big one, or if displays is just a way of saying getting people to see your work. So there's other ways of doing that. But social media is another one. It's a big one. Yep. In fact, there's some, if you go to Tesla Landscaping's website, teslalandscaping.com, there's a page on there that shows their three of their nicest public displays that they've built over the years. Some of them are invested pretty heavily. Like one of them is over six figures in cost and materials and labor just to build the thing. So, but it's paid for itself many times over already. It's just amazing when you put it out there, it happens.
Good stuff. Just wanted to let everybody know we did record this webinar. You'll get a recording in about 2 days into your inbox. So if you want to recap anything, you can catch up with Weston there. Also, if you're interested in doing something on your own website that Weston mentioned about putting in the price levels, I think that's a brilliant idea. Because it just gives people an idea. And I think that's really, really important. It manages all the tire kickers and,
Yep.
Kind of sets the stage ahead of time. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't mind spending a couple hours on an estimate that I have a really high likelihood of winning. It's annoying when I spend a couple hours on an estimate and we're like, oh, my estimate's 80 grand and you had a budget of 10. And we just want to avoid that scenario because the client feels bad. They feel like a heel. They feel embarrassed. Nobody likes to feel like they were the fool, right? So don't, be the expert, educate your client, be their advocate for their best interests, and they will appreciate you.
Good. Well, we'll put a end on this portion of the webinar. We're doing a repeat of this a week from tonight. So if you know somebody that wants to brush up on a few things, feel free to refer them, or if you want to attend again and you have some other thoughts that you want to bring to the table a week, it's exactly a week from today, same time, same channel, and we can do that all over again. So thank you, Weston, for sharing 4 valuable points, and I'd like to, for those of you I won't see next week, I wish you all the best in 2024 and a profitable 2024. And make sure you don't go on any time-wasting estimates.
That's right. Let your kids see you or your spouse see you on those evenings that you would have done on estimates you weren't going to win.